Have you ever heard something like
The
this?
question of whether Roman Catholics are Christians or not is a very natural question for Protestants to raise because of how different our views of salvation are.
That in certain fundamental ways contradicts that very faith by which they are saved. But in that case, they are saved despite the teaching of the church, not because of it.
Firstly, if Catholics aren't Christians, that means that at least half of the baptized professors of the Nicene Creed are, de facto, unbelievers. Furthermore, you can eliminate all of the Eastern Orthodox, Oriental Orthodox, etc., because they do not profess Protestant doctrines like faith alone and the Bible alone. This would mean that for most of church history the vast majority of so-called Christians were not really Christian, and those who were, i.e. the Protestants, couldn't agree among themselves on key doctrines like the necessity of baptism, once saved always saved, etc. But I digress. The real issue is this ridiculous notion that only the most ignorant of Catholics, those who couldn't be bothered to learn what the Church teaches, to live their faith, to seek truth, are the few Catholics who might be saved. How can a religion that purports to worship incarnate truth believe that ignorance saves? Either the body of Christ is synonymous with the Catholic Church, meaning that it subsists in the hierarchical, institutional Church whose supreme pastor is the Bishop of Rome, the Vicar of Christ, the Pope, or Catholicism is patently false, heterodox, worse than pagan. I say this because of the claims that the Church makes about herself: she will abide no partner save Christ, her head and bridegroom. Whatever you wish to say about the Catholic Church, you cannot say that she is simply one denomination among many. The new Protestant claim of inclusivity, which has replaced for many the erstwhile claim of exclusivity, is untenable really. If you are a Protestant, you must view the Catholic Church, meaning those churches in communion with the Pope, as apostate, or else you must come into communion with her. There is no middle ground. As for the claim that the Catholic Church is apostate but some of the poorer participants are saved, in spite of Catholicism, because of their ignorance, perhaps we should add another slogan to the Protestant banner: by grace alone, through faith alone, in ignorance alone. Really, the claim cannot hold water. But what of the Catholics who seem to hold to something similar? There is a dogma of the Church, extra ecclesiam nulla salus, outside of the Church there is no salvation. I would argue that this doctrine has undergone legitimate historical development while maintaining its essential meaning. It suffices to say that there is one Lord, one faith, one baptism. There is one body of Christ founded upon the apostles, with Saint Peter as the head of the College of Apostles, tasked with bringing the gospel and salvation of Christ to a world in the grip of satanic darkness. She does this, chiefly, through the sacred liturgy, the sacraments, and her holy doctrines. This church is necessary for salvation because she is the one body of Christ, human and divine, and to proclaim more than one body, or simply an invisible body but no visible institution, is to commit Christological heresy. However, the Church teaches that those outside of the visible bounds of the Church can still be saved, whether they be Jew or Muslim, Hindu or pagan or another Christian ecclesial community, insofar as they are invincibly ignorant of the necessity of being in full communion with the Catholic Church. There are those, especially in modern times, who seem to teach and act as though all are saved, or that a soul is better left in ignorance. This is preposterous and dangerous to souls. It must be understood that a soul is saved by the merits of Christ by attaining, through grace, to supernatural faith and perfect charity. A soul that is invincibly ignorant can be saved. It is not a given that they will. This is why Christ commanded the apostles to go into all the world preaching the gospel and baptizing all who would come to the fount of salvation. To those souls who, through no fault of their own, could not hear the gospel and receive salvific baptism, God is merciful and gives the actual grace to be saved through the means available to him, through the practice and habit of charity. But this path is exceedingly difficult due to humankind's fallen and bent nature, due to concupiscence and the interference of devils. The only sure path is Christ and his Church, her sacraments and the example and prayers of the saints. There is no salvation in ignorance.